and welcome to the Actualize Earth podcast. My name is Juicy Life, and I'm here with Spencer Jacobson, an amazing, beautiful human in the community who's bringing his gifts into the world to inspire, uplift, transform, and really bring us into this deeper state of embodiment, of connection, of purpose. Now, I personally have felt a lot of support from him in the spaces that he's held. And I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to highlight some of his gifts and the opportunities to connect more deeply with his practices, including his coachings and trainings, and more in particularly the Revel events that is hosted by the Dance Meets Tantra organization that Spencer co-founded that is coming up here in Colorado at Sunrise Ranch, this beautiful piece of land. It's a Eden Valley, quite literally. It's gorgeous. And July 2nd to July 5th, 2026. And that's one of the things I'd like to cover in this. But I really love to just start by giving Spencer a little bit of space to just give a little context to his work, his journey, what has brought him to become who he is now, and what inspires him in sharing these gifts with us.
Mm. Thanks, Juicy, and congrats on kicking off this podcast. I'm super happy to be here with you, and it's nice because we've gotten to share so many spaces over the years, and I've gotten just. It's been a joy to have you, whether it's men's work or dance meets tantra, or just being at the local ecstatic dance or whatever it is. It's nice to co-create and share space with amazing other community leaders. And so thanks for everything that you're doing with Actualize, which is so needed, by the way, just creating these opportunities for us to be more interconnected around the events and the community happenings that are going on is just like incredibly needed. So,
Thank
yeah, in terms of, gosh, in terms of what has brought me here, um, there's a lot of it has just been crafted by my own wild struggle, honestly, of I grew up in a pretty difficult situation, and that led my young adult and adult life to be pretty difficult. And so for me, like healing and awakening wasn't really, it wasn't a cool thing to do. Uh, it wasn't what the cool kids were doing. It wasn't what I grew up around. It really was a necessity of how can I learn to be more connected to myself? How can I learn to accept myself? How can I learn to follow what feels good for me versus doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing or trying to control my life? And so that led me to just this huge path of self-discovery. And then really everything that I do and I offer um, has just come through an incredible self-study of how do I find my way down into my body? How, I feel blocked in my sexuality. What's going on there? What do I need to do and face and feel in order to uh, love and accept myself more and then share that more with other people? And then, it just turned out that I also was learning and becoming really good at creating spaces for other people to do that. And I think at the end of the day, I probably have struggled so much with belonging. And so I create spaces where belonging is more easily available because I'm like, how the frick do I do this belonging thing? I'd like to make it easier for other people so that we can just live a life where we feel more connected and at ease. So I think that in a way, that's sort of my motivation for everything that I do is, man, my journey has been wild and beautiful in many ways, but honestly quite difficult. And so a lot of what I do is like, all right, what do I wish I had when I was at that stage in my journey? And so whether it's dance meets tantra, or the men's work that I offer, or just the coaching, or any of these things, or even Revel, the thing we're working on. I don't personally love festivals because festivals are like too intense, too crazy, too much stuff going on. And so I was like, but I still love getting together with people. I still love a lot of the ingredients of a festival. So I'm here. I'm going to offer this convergence as something that maybe will be more easy for people to integrate with and have a good time at, relative to, I think sometimes the way a festival can be so hard on me personally. So that's just another example of where where I'm coming from with this.
Beautiful. And yeah, to expand on that just a little bit, as a fellow community leader, one of the things I try to do as best I can is, you might say, share the stage. And to me, it's about elevating, creating the stage first and foremost, but then allowing other people to step forward, stand up in their gifts, and to share them. And it's one of the really beautiful things that I see about this Revel event. There's so many of the facilitators that I know, many that I don't, but there's so many different gifts, perspectives, experiences that are waiting for people. And not just, hey, we're going to talk about it online and disseminate information, but this is like embodied community practice. And to me, that just feels like, from my journey, where a lot of that growth actually happens and gets implemented and
Mm.
embodied. And so I just kind of want to, maybe before I wind it back a little bit to a deeper question from your journey, kind of just want to hear a little bit more about the the plethora or the cornucopia of experiences waiting for people that choose
I,
to
I
show up.
I like those words. Yeah, so with Revel, we are Dance Meets Tantra and myself, we're curating, instead of us leading the whole thing, we're curating the teachers and musicians and modalities that we think are not just awesome, but like fit together. Like, whoa, you might not recognize why a grief ritual and a musician and this sort of functional movement and that breath work all would fit together. But that's really what we're
Mm.
doing, is we're bringing together these, in some ways, quite disparate uh, modalities and teachers into something that we think is just going to create the opportunity for people to, um, I think it's about letting go, like the ability to just let go and be in our naturalness, and like just be who you really are. Like, what does that take? I think for many of us, we realize it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to be who we really are. But so, in terms of your question of, who's going to be there, um, it's a number of the most masterful facilitators I've ever been around. And that's another thing I just want to highlight, people like Zahava Gris, or Michaela Winters, or Rachel Rickards, or some of these other people. Again, this is not one of these festivals where we're like, who can we get to come and like offer a workshop and we'll give them a free ticket. And then there's like a bunch of hippie sounding workshops happening. We invited some masterful people who, if you just were to seek them out alone for their teaching, it would be like thousands of dollars just in and of itself. So I think that's kind of a cool opportunity for folks that are coming to Revel, is just to get to marinate in this long weekend with these teachers who just in and of themselves are totally amazing to go experience something from.
Yes, bringing all those gifts together, weaving them together in artful ways, new ways. Man, and especially, I just want to highlight the grief circle aspects that you brought up, because, I met a partner at one of the Dance Meets Tantra events a few years ago and had a challenging breakup. And it took my heart a long time to get over it and to really, like, do that wailing, that feeling, that processing. I
Mm.
didn't even realize that I, like, really needed. Like, I think my mental body kinda let go, but my heart didn't yet. But to have that space after, Attila had, created the Shadow, Dance Meets
Oh,
Tantra
yeah.
events, at the very end of it, after deep embodiment and then different stations set up and going into the grief aspect of it, I was just it felt like there was, like, this infinite amount of pain, but I also came to, like, reckon with it, to integrate with it, to process it,
Mhm.
and it just felt so good to feel safe, safer, comfortable, to be able to just go to that depth, to feel, to express, to wail, to, like, grab the
Yeah.
pillows and just fucking beat on them, and to allow those energies to move, and, I'm just highlighting my experience here because it
Yeah.
deeply impacted me and, feels really important to highlight to people because I'll tell you truth, right? Like, when I moved to Boulder in 2014, I didn't know about any of this stuff. I didn't know, like, tantra wasn't even a concept to me, none of these trainings, experiences, and it's just been slowly building over time as I've built relationships and connections and showed up with curiosity. And, I just wanna create more of an onboarding for people to, feel a little bit more like, "Oh, these are the pieces that I can connect with in the experience of it." And, to that end, y I'm curious maybe to hear just a little bit about your intention in holding the space. Like, what motivates you or what drives you? What inspires you to create the space? Like, how do you hold that kind of space?
Yeah. I For me, it's all about, can I want to create room for people to be authentically alive and empowered, trusting in our own inherent capacity, creativity, goodness, and to be willing and able and courageous enough to follow our intuition, the truth of our desires, um, and to support groups of people, collectives, communities, to be able to operate in more love and connection and synergy, not because those are like nice words to say, but because we have to find ways these days to actually collaborate in generative ways, to stop being like, if we can't stop being torn apart as communities by the stuff that we face, then how the hell are we ever going to expect at a larger scale, politically or as countries or whatever it is, how the hell are we ever going to collaborate? And I actually think that many of us should stop pointing the finger at how terrible, those people outside of us are that are in power, or how could we be at war with these people and that people. I'm like, it's very simple. We're at war with ourselves. We hate ourselves a lot of the time. Or, oh, that person in community, I don't like how they talk to me, or we had a misunderstanding, but instead of just realizing it was a misunderstanding, I'm really mad at them and I'm judging them and I want to like cancel them out of my life or of this community. And so the motivation uh, for Revel in these spaces is to create an opportunity for people to just go so deeply inside of ourselves and have the support to play and connect and to embrace what's difficult. And so that's why I actually like the grief work, I think is so important, is because if that's what's really here for me, I want space to be able to feel and to grieve if that's what's true. Or I want the space to just be able to play and be alive and connect. And often for me, I actually feel more like play and aliveness and joy if I also have a space to feel the hard stuff. So, and I'd also say even some of the sexiness that's available Dance Meets Tantra and Revel is not about this is not about like performing sexiness, or I think sometimes people might feel some kind of way if they've never been to our work, because they're like, oh, do I have to be some certain way in order to go to Dance Meets Tantra? Like, oh, I have to like look good and perform this way and yada yada. It's like, no, actually, we just want to support people in being with what's real.
Yeah.
So that's my intention.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I can share both from my learnings of intentional community and things like authentic relating and circling, the power and the importance of communication and boundaries. And I say this because I want to bridge this to something that I remember reading from you maybe a year and a half ago. It kind of weaves in perfectly here, but it's that the I don't want any more cold cacao anymore. Where there's that like, hey, we're gathering in the circle and we're just being overly verbose and talking and talking, and then the nice hot cacao that was prepared is sitting there cold for us at that point. But to the same point, there's a deep power in setting the container of expressing, the ground rules, the boundaries. And that oftentimes, from my experience, from what I've seen, helps people feel more comfortable, safer, maybe not safe. Safe, I think, is uh, it's a shadowy word to say that something is safe, because nothing is ever fully safe. We can create safer spaces. And a big part is through those agreements. And I believe
Mhm.
every single Dance Meets Tantra event that I've been to with you, there's a facilitator and many facilitators who actually share the different, agreements, and making sure that everybody's aware of and on the same page and has asked those questions that are necessary for everybody to feel like we're on the same page. And I feel like that's actually like
Mhm.
that sense of belonging is we're on the same page. We're in this together. And
Mhm.
I just want to highlight that, because that to me is the cultivation of conscious space. We're speaking it into existence, and we're creating the space for us to be there in our fullness and explore
Mhm.
connection. As they say,
Yeah.
everything is relationship. And to your point, how can we effectively create planetary scale relationship if we're not doing it at our own individual level first? And that's such, I just want to call this out again, because the opportunity to come together and practice, a community of practice, feels so important in this time as we shift from the you might call it the attention economy to the experience economy. We want to have those experiences to come alive. We might not know always what that means or what that looks like, but
Yeah.
when people like yourself come and you create these events, um, I've grown in ways and had experiences that I always wanted as a kid, but never knew were possible, nor how to get
Totally.
there.
I want to say something about this, GC.
Yeah.
You mentioned meeting a partner at Dance Meets Tantra. Um, I get messages all the time from people who met someone who is now their best friend at Dance Meets Tantra, somebody who met a partner at Dance Meets Tantra, somebody who literally found a whole new community. Like they're like, oh my God, this exists. I didn't even know I could feel this much belonging or self-acceptance or just trust in humans as what I found at Dance Meets Tantra. And I want to emphasize this for Revel, for this, just this convergence that we're offering, this coming up in July, is the people that are going to be there are so loving and cool. They just are. They are. It's one of the most accepting, least like stuck in ideology or rigidity based groups of people who really are here for just getting to know each other and supporting one another to live how we really want to live. And I could go so far as to promise that if there's somebody listening and you're like, well, I don't know, I've never really been in that space before, or I don't know if I'm going to know anybody there, or is it going to be scary? Like the best part of Revel will be the people. The best part will be actually people's openness to making new friends, not just like, hey, hi, how are you? But the level of curiosity that people bring to each other in these spaces is incredible. And the level of like love and compassion. So I would just say I kind of wish I could just be like an outsider to the community and come to this event simply because of just the opportunity to really make some new cool connections.
Yeah. Uh, Second, it's one of the things I love about the community is especially around events, which is a core aspect of Actualize, to bring people together in real life. That's where the juice of life is, if you ask me. And the weavings that come where you meet somebody, 5 years ago at this event, and you see them 3, 4 times that year, and maybe not for a couple years, but they come back and it's like old friends because you have that level of depth and that sense of connection and belonging. That's part of Maslow's hierarchy of actualization is belonging. And it's, the number one thing that I hear from most people in our culture and society is a desire and want for community. I mean, to live on land is probably up there as well, but the sense of
Yeah.
community. And I'm kind of curious to hear about your journey of what community means to you, because community is such a loaded word and different people
Mm.
have different perspectives on it. And I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah. Um, well, as I said, um, belonging was always a bit of a journey for me. Of I think for many years I struggled to feel a sense of community. Like I would be connected to communities. I'd be like, well, there's this yoga community and I like some of the people around that, or there's some dance stuff, or these are folks that are in my entrepreneur community. But I think what people actually want is secure attachment. Community is, and they're different. There's like secure attachment with our close in bonds. And that's not necessarily the same thing as like, oh, I have a sense of community. They are different needs, but I think that what a lot of people want, maybe even more than like community, is we want to have some people around us with secure connection, meaning like they're there for me. We can have disagreements and they're not going to go away. We can
Mm,
have hard disagreements and they're not going to go away. I can be all of who I am around them and they're not going to contract or lash out or whatever the case may be. And so for me, my journey around community has really been intricately tied to working with my attachment dynamics. And as I mentioned again, I grew up in a very difficult situation. And so I have pretty, whether it's like disorganized, I like the term mixed. I have like a pretty disorganized attachment system that made it super complicated to like be it consistently in community, be consistently in connection. Uh, there's a lot of times with the mixed attachment system, there's this like ambivalence about, well, I want connection, but also connection can hurt me. And I want connection, but I also know it can hurt me. And so there's this push and pull that can happen. And so for me, one of the honestly like greatest things of my entire life was committing to working with my attachment system and developing relationships specifically where I could feel the hard stuff together and relearn and repattern like, oh, you're not going away if I'm feeling this way, and you're not going away if I'm feeling that way. I'm just in this consistent connection. So that's really been over the last really even like 3, 4 years, been one of the things I've most committed myself to, was not necessarily community, but secure relating. And then realizing, oh, I'm someone who needs to build the community. I have never done so well trying to like join something else. I think that is appropriate for some people. I think it's great. But for me, I think I need to make the invitations. And then if I'm a space where people can feel belonging and connection, then I think that that will create more space for me to feel that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. I'm gonna say this, it might come off a little bit strange, but, um, the selfish quality, like, why are you doing it for you? Which I think can often be missed in the, "I'm doing it for the world" thing. But to me, it comes back to, like, if you can bring those 2 into a place of alignment, like, yes, it is for me, and I'm owning that, and this is what I
Mhm.
want. And also, this is how I see it positively impacting the world around me. Like, line that up. And it also, like, this thread around the secure attachment thing, this might be a little bit of a jump, but feels true for me in my journey of this. Just the word love, and love for self, love for other. It's so easy in the world. I mean, I still am to some degree, and I'm challenged by it. It's one of my edges. But like the bleeding heart, like over giving to somebody else and not giving that love to myself when I really need it. Or similarly,
Mm.
like, and I just want to bring this up because in your work, both in men's groups as well as um facilitating, I'm going to say, challenging space when you're oftentimes navigating people's traumas and stuff. Like, there's also this aspect of this, like, masculine and feminine quality of love that I've been playing with, which, like, the feminine is like, I'm going to hold you. You did nothing. There's nothing you could do wrong. One of my elder
Mhm.
mentors says, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. That feminine quality of love. But the shadow of it is like, well, if it's just that, then you can, like, like a little kid become stagnant because they just like, oh, whatever, I can do whatever I want, is all perfect. But then the other side, which I've played around with and am coming more into my own embodiment around, is that what I describe as like the masculine quality of love, which is like the cutting through the bullshit, that fiery sword. Bro, I see you can do 5 more push-ups, and there's an artfulness of knowing which dynamic of that to kind of
Mhm.
bring to a situation, which I think is the artfulness of the facilitation and the spaces that you inhabit. And I'm kind of curious, maybe that bridges, maybe it doesn't, to the secure attachment thing. But it comes back to me of like the what we're all really looking for is to love and be loved. If if I think I'm quoting Mr. Rogers, that's really what we're seeking in
Shout
life.
out, Mr. Rogers. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there, I love that you're pointing at there's the masculine love and the feminine love. And I think it's so important. Um, that is a part of, I mean, ultimately, secure attachment comes from having a secure relationship with our own soul. You can call that soul or wise self or higher self or inner wise parents. There's many, many different terms that you could use for it. But ultimately, am I able to love and accept myself as I am unconditionally, right? The mother's love, feminine love. Hey, oh, we can feel anything. Like you can fall down 1,000 times, right? And I will forgive you, and it's okay. I'm here. We can feel that together. Like if you can have that kind of feminine love integrated, consistently available with self, as well as the masculine inner love, inner wise self that's saying, hey, we're not going to keep doing that thing anymore. That doesn't serve us. Or, hey, actually, it is time to start that business. that you really want to. And we're not gonna keep doing this thing over and over again because it's actually not loving, right? Like as
Yeah.
that inner, as the soul, right? And we allow that to shine through ourselves, it's to say, actually, sometimes the masculine love is saying enough is enough. Um, or hey, it's time to go for what you really want.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that weaves perfectly into, one of my last questions before the closing question, and that brings it back to what I know a little bit about your journey, and it's on your website as well, but it started off in like a corporate leadership and venture capital, kind of world, and it sound almost like a phase transition going from the world in the way that we're used to working in to following your joy, your bliss, your highest purpose, your calling, the world that you're wanting to create and putting your energy towards that. Kind of curious if you could maybe share just a little bit about that to inspire people because it's a phase change I think a lot of us are going through right now.
Totally. Well, the background is I, as a young person, uh, because of what I was going through at home, I relentlessly pursued anything that I thought would make me good enough and safe. And so at first that was sports, but then it became like work. And can I just get, uh, I went to a prestigious university, and can I just get the best job that will let me have money and have this career and just, I don't know, have my shit together, and that will make me good enough. That will protect me. This all was not highly conscious, obviously. Uh, and so yeah, I was living in New York City and, worked on Wall Street originally, actually. And I just got there. I got this job, and I was just like, oh my God, I cannot imagine myself doing this for the next 20 years or whatever like that. Yeah, so, it was sort of a gradual thing, but I worked for a big British bank, and then I just started this journey of self-discovery, and that led me into the coaching world and into the startups world. And so I was getting closer. I worked for a really fun startup. And I got to be in leadership in this startup, and I was starting to work with clients, and then um ended up starting my own company, bringing coaching at scale into organizations. And for me, it was still I mean, even though it was a startup, it was still very much in this corporate space in a way, like sitting in boardrooms. And ultimately for me, my journey just took me to leaving it all behind. Like in a way, I burned everything down and went on a quest in a way just to seek truth. And where it led me for now is just to create these spaces and to work with people really around soul initiation and power and eros and bringing your deepest gifts into the world. Um, and I won't say that I won't ever work in the corporate space again. I think that there's a lot of beauty that can be created in those environments. But um, what I will say for anybody's listening, I used to feel so stuck. Oh my god, that was probably like the big and I know people can really feel that way, like we're working in a job that we don't like, but feeling so stuck and helpless to be able to change it. And even though I just breezed through that summary of I did this and then I did that and then I did that, a lot of the experience in a lot of that was like, "Oh my god, I'm so stuck and I don't wanna do this anymore." So I wanna just also have a lot of compassion for anybody at that phase of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, number of things. Like I hear from so many people the hero's journey, the feeling the pain, going through the darkness to come out the other side to share the gifts. I hear that in your story of this, desiring belonging and desiring connection and not feeling it and being in the darkness about it. And then you taking that action to create that in your life and taking responsibility, shifting from the victim mentality to the creator mentality, that it's happening for you and not to you. And, when people ask me these days, it's like, how you doing? I'm like, it's pretty complex. It's like, I feel like at the same time, like there's so much challenge and shadow. And like, I describe, like, it's like the roots growing down into the earth. Like it's like dark and damp and it's challenging, but at the same time, like that's where the growth is, and that's where like the tree gets its energy to come up and then, to share and create the fruit to share. And I think that's I think both in your pithy kind of like, the cold cacao or the word salad workshop kind of thing, it's almost like that jest of pointing to the shadows of conscious community, because oftentimes I think there's that spiritual bypass of just talk about the light. And I feel like that's where I want to kind of bring this into a closing question and a closing segment, that I picked up from another podcaster, Aisha Taylor, called Self-Inflicted Wounds. And the idea of like shifting from that victim to creator consciousness, I'd really love to hear if there's a story that comes to mind or heart for you that was like, it maybe portrays you in a negative light, or, you did something stupid, or whatever it might be, but there was a lesson on the other side of it and a blessing that came from it.
I mean, this is just like my whole journey. Um, my whole journey was that, but I think one that is coming to mind right now is I have I think this is relevant to somebody who's looking to build their thing. But one of the biggest self-inflicted wounds that I have had is in creation. I have partnered with people out of a place of disempowerment. I've said, here, let's do this 50-50. I have this idea. Let's go do this thing. Let's do it 50-50. I'm drastically simplifying, but that's kind of the gist of it, was like, let's partner, and going on and building very successful things. But because we did it 50-50, so many issues came up in the long run. Like, it was frustrating. There was a lot of dynamics around who's doing what, and partnering from a place of disempowerment, where if I had really been, I think, fully connected to my agency, to my goodness, to my value, I would have said, yeah, maybe I want to collaborate with people, but I'm not gonna just give away this, like, oh, now, Juicy, let's be partners in this. Let's be 50-50. It'll be great. This is where we'll go. I would have had the courage to say, hey, Juicy, do you want to come and work with me on this? This is what the opportunity looks like. Here's your role. Are you excited about that? Do you want to go do this thing together? Um, and I've done that time and again, of being disempowered and kind of giving away my agency, instead of just actually sticking up for what I know I want to do. And I would even go so far as to say, like, when I support people now in following their purpose and working on the projects that most light them up, I say, do not collaborate unless you have a really good reason to do so. Like, unless there is a really good reason to do so, I think it's actually really important for people to develop and be willing to face the parts of ourselves that want to collaborate out of a sense of inadequacy.
Yeah. And also, I'd say to dovetail on that, the desire to feel that sense of belonging, connection. Like, hey, we're in this together. We're working together. Yeah, sure. I'll make a little compromise here and there so that we can work together. I certainly have felt that and done that in the past. Just like, I want to do the thing, and oh, there's people who are also wanting to do the thing. Cool. What's the most that I can give to help make that happen? And again, like that over bleeding heart aspect that I connect with within myself, at least. Um, but yeah, um, curious if you could like bring it to like a sentence or two, like underneath that, the partnerships. Like, what would you say is like the essence there for you and the wisdom that you gain from that?
Um, the essence of it is really examining my unconscious helplessness, really examining the places where I feel incapable and not creating a life to protect myself from dealing with that, but just recognize like that's the place I gotta go. I gotta go right to the place where I feel incapable, right for the place where I feel helpless or like an imposter and just deal with it.
Yeah. Well, want to bring it to a close in a good way here. I thought I may have opened with this quote, but I'm going to share it in the closing. And it's from Bob Marley. And it used to be like, you know how on Facebook you used to be able to like put quotes and stuff on your wall? Like for some reason, this was the one that stuck for me back when I was in college. But it's the greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. And I, again, want to share that because there's an opportunity to come together. This Revel event coming up at Sunrise Ranch, July 2nd to 5th. You can find a link in the comments below, to be in that community of practice, to learn how to be in a deeper state of embodiment, to explore those unknowns and those edges, those places that feel uncomfortable, to feel safer in your full expression, to feel more deeply. So, with all of my heart, with all of my soul, I invite you to be with these amazing facilitators and the 300 or so people who will be showing up for this mini festival, retreat, training, deep dive embodiment experience, as it is an opportunity to help take you to the next level and to actualize more into who you are here to be. Thank you so much, Spencer, for bringing these gifts to the world, for the presence that you are, and for this opportunity to come together at this event. Thank you for all you're doing and putting it together.
Thanks, Juicy. Fun to be on here. Yeah, appreciate you.
Well, you bet. Thanks for helping me, with your manifestor energy and my manifestor energy,
Oh
getting the
yeah.
ball rolling in this Actualize Earth podcasts, because I feel more in my purpose in doing this. And grateful to have the flow, the dialogue, the deeper expression of meaning that comes from these types of opportunities to share and to connect. So thank you all for tuning in. Excited to share more in the future and hope to see you at this Revel event at Sunrise Ranch in Colorado, July 2nd to 5th. All right. Take care.
Bless
Peace.
up.